You were not prepared for how quickly the name would surface on August 27th, the sister-in-law who wounded you without apology, and the quiet certainty that you are not meant to defend her anymore. The air in your chest feels different today, as if a door you kept holding open has finally begun to close. You have carried her story longer than you carried your own peace, and now the weight is shifting. This is not revenge, it is recognition. You are being asked to stop explaining what never deserved your explanation. You are being asked to stop protecting a narrative that never protected you. If you sense that this season is different but cannot name why, there is a companion for that confusion. The 7 Principles of C.S. Lewis for the Chosen was written to help you identify the season you are living and understand what the waiting may be forming. It offers language for what your spirit already knows and practical ways to respond with faith, clarity, and direction. To access the ebook, go now to the top of the comments and click the link in the pinned comment. After you see it, return here because the next sentence matters for your heart. The exposure you fear is not primarily about her. It is about the part of you that still believes loyalty means silence. You have rehearsed defenses in the shower, in the car, in the quiet before sleep, and each rehearsal cost you a little more peace. Today, the invitation is simpler. Let the truth stand without your permission. The cost of this loyalty shows up in small ways before it shows up in big ones. You wake with your shoulders already tight, as if your body remembered the argument before your mind did. You scroll past her name and feel your breath shorten. Then you tell yourself you are fine. You answer messages you do not want to answer, and you call it kindness when it is often fear. You carry the family story in your jaw, in your stomach, in the way you avoid certain rooms in your own home. You have learned to smile when your name is used to soften her behavior, and you have learned to nod when your pain is renamed as sensitivity. This is not weakness. It is a pattern that kept you safe once. But safety that requires your silence becomes a cage, and cages do not protect what is alive inside you. What this day offers is not a dramatic confrontation, but a clear recognition. You may begin to see that exposure is not always punishment. Sometimes it is simply the end of cover. You may notice that your peace does not depend on controlling the story anymore. You may discover that your loyalty was never meant to be a shield for harm. You may realize that the person who needed your protection most was you. This message will walk with you through the signs you have been ignoring, the root pattern that kept you quiet, and the one sustained image that will help you understand what is forming in this season. You will be given 2 simple practices to carry into your ordinary days, and you will be invited to make one clear decision without panic. None of this requires you to become harsh. It requires you to become honest. Picture this. It is early morning, and the coffee on the counter has already gone cold. Your phone lights up with a message that mentions her name, and your first instinct is to explain, to soften, to add context. You feel the old script rise in your throat, the one that begins with "you do not understand" and ends with you apologizing for existing. But today, something in you pauses. You notice your hand hovering over the keyboard, and you notice the tightness in your chest that has lived there for months. You set the phone down without answering, and the silence feels strange, almost disobedient. In that silence, a new sentence forms quietly. I do not have to defend what wounded me. It does not arrive with anger. It arrives with relief. You pour the cold coffee into the sink, and the sound of the water feels like a small act of release. This is where discernment begins, not in grand declarations, but in small refusals to repeat the old story. You are not superior for noticing this. You are simply tired enough to stop pretending. Many people who have walked this path before you said the hardest part was not the waiting, but not knowing what the waiting meant. They were exhausted from interpreting every silence as abandonment and every delay as rejection. The 7 Principles of C.S. Lewis for the Chosen was created to help you distinguish between waiting, preparation, closure, redirection, rebuilding, and new beginning. Many readers who arrived feeling confused or tired of waiting said the material helped them understand their season more clearly, organize their prayers, or stop interpreting every silence as abandonment. To access the ebook, go now to the top of the comments and click the link in the pinned comment. When you return, you will see that the next step is not about her at all. It is about the voice inside you that still argues for her version of events. That voice is not your enemy. It is a habit that learned to speak loudly when you were younger and had fewer boundaries. The first opposition will not come from her. It will come from the noise inside your own head. It will tell you that refusing to defend her makes you unkind. It will whisper that you are overreacting, that you are making this bigger than it is, that you should be the bigger person. It will remind you of every time you were praised for being understanding, and it will warn you that peace might be lost if you stop performing that role. This noise thrives on fatigue, on comparison, on the false urgency of needing to respond immediately. It wants you to answer before you have asked yourself what you actually believe. It wants you to protect the family image more than you protect your own ability to breathe without tension. You do not have to argue with this noise. You only have to stop feeding it with immediate obedience. There is a quiet echo of this in the story of Joseph, who spent years carrying the weight of his family's confusion without forcing his own explanation. He did not rush to defend himself when he was misunderstood, and he did not rush to expose what was hidden before the time was right. He worked, he waited, he kept his integrity in small rooms with no audience. When the moment came for truth to be known, it did not require his anger, it required his presence. You are not Joseph, and this is not his story, but the pattern is familiar. Sometimes the most faithful thing you can do is refuse to manage the narrative. Sometimes the most faithful thing you can do is let the truth arrive without your permission. Your ordinary life is the place where this plays out, in the message you do not send, in the conversation you do not enter, in the silence you no longer fill with apology. The cost of ignoring this signal is not dramatic. It is slow. You continue to wake with your shoulders tight, and you continue to tell yourself it is normal. You continue to answer messages that drain you, and you continue to call it love. You continue to carry her story in your body, and you continue to wonder why your peace feels so fragile. The cycle repeats not because you are weak, but because you have not named the pattern. You have not said out loud that loyalty without honesty becomes a form of self-abandonment. You have not admitted that your silence has been interpreted as permission. You have not allowed yourself to consider that the person who needed your protection most was you. This is not blame, this is diagnosis, and diagnosis is the first step toward a different kind of freedom. Today, on August 27th, you are being invited to reframe what this title means for you. It is not about revenge, it is about release. It is not about proving her wrong, it is about proving to yourself that your peace matters more than her narrative. If this resonates, type 888 in the comments as a simple confirmation that you are choosing recognition over repetition. Do not make this a ritual of manifestation. Make it a quiet agreement with yourself that you are done defending what wounded you. After you type it, return here because the next paragraph will ask you to look at the root pattern without shame. You are not broken for having carried this. You are human, and humans learn to protect what they love, even when what they love is a story that no longer serves them. The root is not that you loved her too much. The root is that you learned to equate love with silence. Somewhere along the way, you were taught that kindness means never naming harm, that loyalty means never correcting the record, that peace means never disrupting the family image. You learned to swallow your truth so others could keep their comfort. You learned to apologize for your pain so others could keep their version of events. This pattern did not make you bad, it made you manageable. And manageable people are often praised until they forget what they actually feel. You are not being asked to become harsh, you are being asked to become honest. Honesty is not the opposite of love, it is the foundation of it. This pattern lives in your mind, in your body, and in your spirit, and each layer speaks a different language. Your mind tells you that you are overreacting, that you should be grateful for what you have, that you are making too much of this. Your body tells a different story: tight chest, shallow breath, jaw clenched, stomach uneasy. Your spirit whispers something quieter. This is not peace. This is performance. When these three voices disagree, you feel fragmented, as if you are living in three different directions at once. Discernment begins when you stop trusting the mind that was trained to manage everyone else's comfort and start listening to the spirit that knows what peace actually feels like. This is not about rejecting reason, it is about refusing to let fear dress itself up as reason. Your relationships and environments will reflect this shift, whether you intend them to or not. Some people will feel relieved that you are no longer carrying the weight of their secrets. Some people will feel threatened because your honesty exposes what they prefer to keep hidden. You may notice that certain conversations no longer interest you, that certain rooms no longer feel safe, that certain people no longer have access to your inner life. This is not suspicion. This is stewardship. You are not required to explain your boundaries to everyone. You are required to honor them yourself. Discernment does not mean you assume the worst in everyone. It means you stop assuming the best in situations that have repeatedly wounded you. You are allowed to protect your peace without apologizing for it. The strategy of opposition in your life is not subtle, it is predictable. It uses noise to keep you distracted, fatigue to keep you compliant, delay to keep you doubting, and lesser urgencies to keep you from the one decision that would change everything. It tells you to respond immediately, to fix it now, to smooth it over, to keep the peace at any cost. It tells you that your peace can wait, that your truth can wait, that your healing can wait until everyone else is comfortable. But peace that waits forever is not peace, it is postponement. And postponement is how good people lose years of their lives to patterns that never served them. You do not have to fight this strategy, you only have to stop participating in it. The turning point for you is not a dramatic moment, it is a quiet one. It is the moment you stop negotiating with the truth you already know. It is the moment you admit that you have been defending a narrative that never defended you. It is the moment you realize that your loyalty was never meant to be a shield for harm. It is the moment you understand that exposure is not always punishment. Sometimes it is simply the end of cover. You do not need permission for this. You only need honesty. And honesty does not require an audience. It requires you. Imagine a seed that has been buried under layers of soil, not because it was rejected, but because it was being formed. For a long time, it could not see the sun, and it might have believed that darkness was its permanent address. It felt the weight above it and interpreted it as abandonment, when in fact it was protection. The soil was not a tomb, it was a workshop. Inside that darkness, roots were learning to hold, to reach, to anchor. The seed was not being punished, it was being prepared. You are that seed. The silence you lived through was not proof that you were forgotten. It was the condition that allowed your roots to grow deep enough to hold what is coming. Inside this metaphor, formation happened where no one could see it. While you were defending her, your roots were learning to hold without shaking. While you were explaining your pain, your roots were learning to anchor without apology. While you were carrying her story, your roots were learning to reach for water you could not yet see. You might have felt stuck, but you were actually being strengthened. You might have felt buried, but you were actually being built. The darkness was not your enemy, it was your teacher. And teachers do not always speak in words. Sometimes they speak in pressure, in waiting, in the quiet that forces you to listen to what you actually need. The opposition inside this metaphor is the weight that told you to stay small. It is the soil that pressed down and whispered that you were not ready, that you were not enough, that you should wait longer, that you should not rise yet. It is the fear that told you the sun would burn you if you ever reached for it. It is the voice that said your roots were not strong enough, that your stem was too fragile, that your leaves would never be able to hold the light. This opposition was not lying about the difficulty. It was lying about your capacity. You were not too weak to rise. You were being asked to rise from a deeper place than you expected. Movement inside this metaphor does not look like explosion. It looks as steady as a breath. The seed does not fight the soil. It grows through it. It does not argue with the weight. It learns to move around it. It does not demand the sun. It reaches toward it, one small increment at a time. You are that movement. You are not required to burst through everything at once. You are required to keep reaching toward what feels like light. The exposure you fear is not a storm. It is the moment the first green tip breaks the surface and says, "I am here." It does not need your defense. It needs your presence. Recognition inside this metaphor is the moment you see the green and realize you are no longer under the soil. You are not the same seed that was buried. You are the beginning of something that can photosynthesize light into life. If this image resonates, type "I am rising" in the comments as a simple agreement that you are done interpreting darkness as abandonment. Do not make this a performance. Make it a quiet acknowledgement that you are no longer under the weight you once were. After you type it, return here, because the next paragraph will bring this image back into your ordinary day. You do not have to become a different person to live this. You only have to stop pretending you are still buried. Return is not performance, it is presence. You do not have to announce your boundaries to everyone, you only have to live them. You do not have to explain your peace to anyone, you only have to protect it. You do not have to prove that you were wounded. You only have to stop wounding yourself to keep others comfortable. The seed does not argue with the soil, it grows. You do not have to argue with the narrative, you live differently. Your life becomes the evidence, not your explanation. And evidence does not need your defense, it needs your consistency. The first practice is simple and can be done tomorrow morning before you touch your phone. When you wake, place your hand on your chest and say out loud, "I am not required to defend what wounded me." Say it slowly, 3 times, and feel the weight of it in your body. Then, before you check any messages, write 1 sentence in a notebook. "Today, I choose peace over performance." Keep that sentence visible and let it be the lens through which you read every message, every conversation, every invitation. This is not magic, it is alignment. And alignment is how good people stop losing themselves to patterns that never serve them. The second practice is a threshold pause you can use before you enter any space where her name might come up. Before you walk into the room, before you join the call, before you open the group chat, stop for 3 seconds and ask yourself, am I about to protect my peace or protect the image? If the answer is the image, you are allowed to step back. You are allowed to say, I am not available for this conversation. You are allowed to leave the room. You are allowed to close the chat. This is not rudeness. This is stewardship. And stewardship is how you teach people how to treat you without saying a word. Protection through limits is not harsh. It is merciful. You are not required to answer every message. You are required to honor your capacity. You are not required to attend every gathering. You are required to honor your peace. You are not required to explain your boundaries. You are required to honor your truth. Mercy is not only for the person who wounded you, it is for the person who has been carrying the wound. You are allowed to close doors that keep reopening. You are allowed to change rhythms that keep draining you. You are allowed to say no without a paragraph of justification. No is a complete sentence, and peace is a complete reason. The decision you are being invited to make is not complicated. You will no longer defend what wounded you. You will no longer carry her story in your body. You will no longer apologize for your pain so others can keep their comfort. You will no longer interpret silence as abandonment when it is actually protection. You will no longer equate love with silence. You will no longer manage the narrative at the cost of your peace. This decision does not require anyone else's agreement. It requires your honesty. And honesty is the foundation of every life that feels like home. If this message has felt like a quiet amen in your spirit, tap the like button as a silent agreement that you are done defending what wounded you. Do not make this about metrics. Make it about the part of you that knows peace when it hears it. After you do, return here, because the next paragraph will ask you to think of someone who needs to hear this with you. You are not required to carry this alone. You are allowed to share it with someone who came to mind while you were listening. Think of the person who has been carrying a similar weight, the one who has been defending a narrative that never defended them. Think of the one who has been waking with tight shoulders, answering messages that drain them, calling it love when it is often fear. Think of the one who has been interpreting silence as abandonment when it might actually be protection. Share this with them, not as pressure, but as care. Send it with a simple message. This made me think of you. You do not have to explain it. You only have to deliver it, and delivery is how good people stop losing themselves in isolation. If you have been waiting for permission to stop defending what wounded you, this is it. Type "I am chosen" in the comments as a quiet declaration that you are done equating love with silence. Do not make this a wish. Make it a confirmation of what you already know. You are not chosen because you are perfect. You are chosen because you are willing to be honest. You are not chosen to perform. You are chosen to return. And return is how good people find their way home to themselves. You began this message with your shoulders tight and your breath shallow, and you are ending it with a different kind of weight in your chest. The sister-in-law who wounded you does not get to define your peace anymore. The narrative that required your silence does not get to define your loyalty anymore. The exposure you feared is not your punishment. It is your release. You are not required to defend what wounded you. You are required to protect what is forming in you. The seed that was buried is rising, not because the soil disappeared, but because the roots learned to hold. You are that seed. You are that rise. You are that peace. May you walk into tomorrow with your shoulders softer and your breath deeper. May you answer fewer messages that drain you and more invitations that feel like home. May you stop interpreting silence as abandonment and start receiving it as protection. May you close doors that keep reopening and open windows that let light in. May you choose peace over performance, honesty over harmony, stewardship over sacrifice. May you remember that you are not required to manage the narrative. You are only required to live your truth. May you carry this quietly, without announcement, without apology, without explanation. It is sealed. May you walk into tomorrow with your shoulders softer and your breath deeper. May you answer fewer messages that drain you and more invitations that feel like home. May you stop interpreting silence as abandonment and start receiving it as protection. May you close doors that keep reopening and open windows that let light in. May you choose peace over performance, honesty over harmony, stewardship over sacrifice. May you remember that you are not required to manage the narrative. You are only required to live your truth. May you carry this quietly, without announcement, without apology, without explanation. Across the world, others who heard this same quiet recognition are setting their phones down with steadier hands and sleeping with less tension in their jaws. They are not becoming harsh. They are becoming honest. They are not becoming distant. They are becoming clear. They are not becoming cold. They are becoming free. And you are among them, not because you are perfect, but because you are willing to stop defending what wounded you. It is sealed.